may have left the house today and not thought about plants at all, but you probably ate some plants. You may have washed with plants, maybe with some mint, some aloe vera. You probably put on some plants like cotton. And people have really got very far away from what plants can do for us.
Main way that botanicals have actually been associated with medicine is not necessarily the plant themselves, but what they've been able to do with it. Around the 1900 period, we got really quite good at doing organic chemistry. And at that point then people started to get the plants and modify them to make drugs that we wanted.
In fact, in the 50s, a pharmaceutical company went to Jamaica and investigated a small plant called the Madagascar periwinkle. The Jamaicans were using it to treat diabetes, but what these scientists found was it wasn't actually effective for treating diabetes, but it was effective in childhood leukemia. What the drug vincristine has done is brought down the death rate in childhood leukemia from 90% in the 1960s to 10% today. Plants are so useful in medicines that around 80% of the population, even today, still uses plants as their primary health care.
So Chelsea Physic Garden is the oldest botanic garden in London, and just down the road our neighbours, the Royal Brompton and Harefield NHS Foundation Trust, are the largest specialists for heart and lung conditions in the UK. So it felt like a perfect opportunity to present this exhibition of the art and healing power of plants. It's really about celebrating botanic art along with the medicine and the plants as well that they represent, to combine together to show new audiences plants in a completely different way.
Plants, we hope, will be here forever because they're so well cared for, but it's a way of conserving those plants in paint, on paper. We create beautiful paintings that are scientifically accurate.
They have got to be verified by scientific measures to make sure that the scales are all correct, the way in which they show the seed pods, every single detail has to be accurate.
The Chelsea Physic Garden Florilegium Society was formed, and they are the creators of all these paintings that identify and classify the plants in the garden so far. And with the help of the gardeners and botanists, create the artworks.
Every day of the year will be a gardener here. We have 7 really skilled botanical horticulturalists that keep the garden looking good. And we grow maybe 3 or 4 specimens of over 1,000 different species, all of them requiring different care. And we're also helped by skilled volunteers to make sure that we can really get all of this work done.
We have a collection of over 600 paintings here at the garden, so we really want to showcase these to people. And then it also gives us an amazing opportunity to start working more closely with the Royal Brompton to get the patients out of the hospital and into green spaces, and we're just a 15-minute walk away, so it's really perfect to be able to connect these two sites.
Plants are not only very physically beneficial to us in the way of clothing and medicines, they are also more psychologically beneficial to us in terms of well-being and mental health. An architect in the 80s discovered that patients that were in hospital rooms with windows, their recovery was sped up and it was actually better.
Absolutely really strong evidence that the healing garden actually does improve, the outlook of all sorts of hospital patients. So I mean, the gardens do have a big place to play.
Real importance of having these botanical drawings out in the garden is engaging people on another level. It gets them engaged with the plants and makes them want to look at them a bit closer.
As a patient, I think it would be a joyful experience to see an artwork on the wall, but it's interesting to know how it affects your own treatments and so forth.
So if you look, for instance, there are 2 poppies in there which are being drawn. One of the poppies is the opium poppy, and that essentially makes the majority of the alkaloids that are in it, the chemicals in it, are morphine and codeine. So they're the things that would normally produce sleep or they suppress your cough for codeine. The other one is the oriental or the Iranian poppy, and the major components of that is a drug called thebaine, which we don't actually use itself, but what happens is that thebaine is being used by the pharmaceutical industry to make other agents, so it makes a reversal agent for morphine, but it also makes an interesting set of drugs which cure pain.
So the common foxglove, Digitalis purpurea, contains a compound called digitalin, and that helps to regulate the heartbeat.
I started with a bulb, and then I added another bit and another bit, and as the next bit, when it flowered, I painted a flowering bulb, and then the flower dies down, and it's often referred to as the naked lady because it has no leaves. Flower dies, then the leaves come up, and the flower, the seed pod after fertilization grows up through the middle of the leaves and stands probably about 18 inches high in the wild. I think it took me about 18 months in the end. So we can show the viewer all the salient parts of the plant, how it reproduces, how it grows, its life cycle, and it's an interesting kind of crossover from the art into the science, and it just raises people's awareness of how beautiful and fragile plants are, but at the same time their huge healing power. To be able to show people the insides and how they work is really, really fantastic.
We just all know it. You know, as soon as you walk into a space like this, I see it every day, people's shoulders drop and they just kind of relax into it. It just has that effect, you can see it. My hopes for the future is that we are more connected to plants. People are intrinsically selfish, and if we can connect people to plants and say these are why they're useful, then people will probably feel that they want to preserve them. There are lots of plants out there that we don't even know what they can do, and these huge centres of biodiversity in the rainforests that we're not preserving, they could hold the key to our future for medicine. So a large part of what I want to encourage is a connection to plants and by that conservation.